A big thank you to Jero for sponsoring today's video on Patreon. Okay, Ariette has passed through the turn, so is still here, but you didn't keep a non-lander, surely. Play the Mana Crypt, and we can use Mana Vault mana to... yeah, now he scoops. Can use the Mana Vault mana to get ourselves into the commander, so we'll go for the Power Stone here. And yeah, that player scoops as well. We assumed that this was going to happen. They haven't even seen the Mana Vault yet. A Core Duelist will get double strike when it is equipped. Alright, goes from bad to worse for our opponents, and Ugin the Ineffable. So, we can just hold up the Liberator, Rafflethopter. This is the benefit of colourless decks, especially on Magic Online. You can add the expensive fast mana cards to any deck, but you don't have to worry about getting into your coloured pieces in a colourless deck. Speaking of which, a Marble Diamond for our opponent. Let's see if they want to swing in with the Core Duelist. Yep, that's a shame. Going to make things even more difficult for our opponent by getting rid of this creature, blocking it before it gets double strike. Play ourselves a Thought Vessel. Plus counter goes on to the Liberator. And then we'll get down the Genesis Chamber simply because it's more expensive. And block the Core Duelist. Alright, another land for us, so we get 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana. So we're a mana shy off our commander, so do we just go for the Ugin here? Yeah, why not? So that is a turn 3 Ugin for us, and we can play things at flash speed as well. Going to assume that my opponent isn't going to get haste, so we'll swing in with the Liberator after bolting our opponent, and Ugin can be a means of refilling our hand if our opponent decides to play it out much further. Alright, and our opponent said good game in the chat, so I'm guessing that he's just leaving us to it now. So we'll call it a day there and get on with the real game. Kozilek the Broken Reality versus Nekusar, Maelstrom Wanderer, and Aloro. Some old school commanders here, powerful ones as well. And yeah, we can't keep a hand like we did in the previous game because, well, it's just going to go the same way every single time. But this isn't particularly good. We want at least a little bit of ramp, so let's try for that. Okay, that's looking better. And we end up drawing into Eye of Ugin. I think we start off with a tap land in Myriad Landscape. Especially with all these rocks in play, it's nice to be able to make a couple of constructs with the Urza's Saga. Well, there's some fast mana from the Maelstrom Wanderer player, so we'll see if anyone sticks it out for this commander. Because they don't tend to do it for the Eldrazi. Played a Kodama's Reach as well. And there is a Soul Ring, serves us right for the first game, I suppose. Into a Howling Mine, so the card draw begins. And that is an Ugin the Ineffable to make our colourless spells cost less. And an Urza's Power Plant, so yeah, I think we get down the Urza's Saga here. We're not desperate to get down the constructs, it's just nice to be able to do it at least once. Makes for good blockers while we buy ourselves some time. Get down the Thought Vessel as well. Probably going to have to go for the Warm Power Stone next turn though, as opposed to tapping 2 mana into this. Ajani's Pridemate for the life game player. Playing a land into Findhorn Elves over here, so that is 5, 6 mana available. And we're getting even more card draw, maybe we'll get into the fast mana ourselves. A Stormfist Crusader. Well, torts it up, a Grim Monolith. And a Null Elemental Blast. Unfortunately countering the Maelstrom Wanderer isn't the best thing, because they do get the Cascade triggers on the stack still. Can't afford to get down Ugin here unfortunately, so we'll get our first piece of Tron. And we'll go for the Warm Power Stone like we said previously, can still hold up the Null Elemental Blast. Maybe we will still counter the Maelstrom Wanderer depending on what they cascade into, because we might not want them to have haste. Ajani's Pridemate gets its first plus counter thanks to the upkeep. And the 3-3 swings in at us, after playing a Phyrexian Arena that is. An Exploration, so with 7 cards in hand, Maelstrom Wanderer might have enough lands to make use of that. Does manage to make landfall twice, so that is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana. Luckily the commander is 8 mana. I'm sure it's stacked with plenty of heavy hitters though. A Consecrated Sphinx is a good one. We're looking for multicoloured spells and permanents unfortunately. Luckily for them this is a May ability, because we're all going to be drawing a lot of cards thanks to Nekusar. Draw a card to the Crusader, which means our opponent can draw 6. And we've got into a 3-fold Thunderhulk, which is always a weird thing to try and say. But if Nekusar comes down, it is going to punish the Consecrated Sphinx player, so it's already up to 11 cards. Might be worth letting Nekusar down. A Commander Sphere first. Didn't manage to get into a land apparently. I'm sure he would have liked to get down his commander there. Unlucky that he hasn't managed to make a land. And the 2-2 goes in towards Aloro, who is sitting at 45 life. Alright, and there is a Sig River Cutthroat as well. So you can draw a card if an opponent lost 3 or more life this turn, which triggers the Consecrated Sphinx again. If we tap the Urza Saga for a couple of mana into the construct, and then we'll replace this with a Sol Ring, so we'll have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana, which can take us into an Ugin that will get hit by the Consecrated Sphinx, but yeah, that's a shame. We could cheat out like the Grim Monolith and the Swiftfoot Boots, but I think we're best just getting down a blocker here. Maybe see what we draw into first, because it triggers during the main phase. Alright, Kozilek, the Great Distortion, I don't think changes anything. Yeah, we'd be a mana shy, and that's our card draw effect anyway, so we can wait on that. Draw it with the Howling Mine as well. Into the Sol Ring, so now maybe we're getting Mana Vault. So then it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, we can plus on the Ugin, can't we? So let's make an Urza's Saga Construct, which is a 3-3 at the moment, but it's about to get buffed up even further. So I have to sacrifice a land here, replace it with a Mana Vault, and pray that we don't see any artifact removal. Suppose we could go for Crypt instead. That would be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Can play and equip the Swiftfoot Boots or hold up the Null Elemental Blast. Let's go for Mana Crypt instead. A bit more useful to us without an unwinding clock. So I'll go Ugin the Ineffable first, because it makes the Sol Ring free. I'm not sure if that actually makes a difference, but we'll do it anyway. Even if the Planeswalker does go down, we're going to be able to make use of these free spells at least. Get out the Grim Monolith as well. Might as well play the Swiftfoot Boots. Actually, if we've got 5 mana, 5, 6, 7 means we can afford this and get some blockers in the way. And blow up the Consecrated Sphinx. 21 cards in hand now. I mean, they're just going to get haste next turn and go wide anyway, so maybe to try and keep our commander in play, we go for this. So let's tick down on the Sphinx. Play the Thunder Hulk, which enters with 3+ counters and 3 gnome tokens. And next turn, hopefully, we'll have 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 mana into a Kozilek. So that's 3 mana spare, basically. And we might even be able to save some mana if Ugin the Ineffable survives. So we shall leave it there. I think it was a good investment, getting down an 11/11 for 2 mana. And it'll be interesting to see if Aloro regrets getting down the Phyrexian Arena. Might have been the only card he could play last turn, though. And the 4/4 turns in at the right. There we are, a Damnation plays right into the hands of the Maelstrom Wanderer player. I would have waited on that personally, because I think Maelstrom Wanderer is going to be swinging into us anyway. Yeah, it seems as though Aloro's just kind of playing cards and not really thinking about it. Discarding hand size, a land, and a Deep Analysis, which he can flash back. So, tap out into Maelstrom Wanderer, I imagine. 23 cards in hand, 65 left in the library. Might be that he's got a Vandal Blast, which will pretty much knock us out of the game, I dare say. Got his own Grim Monolith, so that sends him up a land, which means he might be able to hold up some kind of counter magic or something, though you don't tend to see that in Maelstrom Wanderer, because obviously you don't want to cascade into it. So after the Grim Monolith, a Maelstrom Wanderer. Greater Good is excellent with this commander, because if it's about to be blown up anyway, you can draw 7, discard 3. And a Sensei's Top, I mean, yeah, could have been a lot worse. Still going to have a hasty 7/5 though, but at least our Ugin will protect us against a combat step with Maelstrom Wanderer, because obviously that only has to hit you 3 times before you are knocked out of the game. Able to make 2 lands for the turn, and gets down another Dork in the Elvish Mystic. Obviously the mana Dork has haste as well, so can just make use of the mana immediately. Lotus Cobra after the lands have been made, so that means that this can go in at Ugin, and we do not buy a turn against the Maelstrom Wanderer, which swings into the left against Aloro. And having to discard a bunch of stuff down to hand size here, a chunk of lands, Carnage Tyrant, Serum Visions, Chromatic Lantern. Ponder. I mean, God only knows what he's got in hand. Eternal Witness. Keeping all his big stuff in hand by the looks of it. We see a Fevered Visions now, so at the beginning of each player's end step, that player draws a card. If the player is your opponent, it has 4 or more cards in hand, 2 damage to them, so in this game it's likely to be 2 damage every turn. Do get the card draw from it though. Now, do we go for Kozilek, Butcher of Truth after all, simply because of the Annihilator? We'll need 11 mana, and we've got 12, so hold up Null Elemental Blast as well. Can maybe have our opponent tap out thinking he's going to have haste and then get rid of the Maelstrom Wanderer. That might buy us a bit of time. Okay, there is a Zenith Chronicler, which I don't think we're going to have to worry about this game. So yeah, get down the Eye of Ugin, and we'll play the Kozilek, I think. Might be best to get down Kozilek and draw the cards before we see any draw pain as well, because we're at a reasonably healthy life total at the moment. Alright, drawing into Everflowing Chalice. Hopefully be able to go for something like Rise of the Eldrazi next turn, and if we can keep an Annihilator creature in play, then all the better. Noteworthy, we have Canop Tech in hand as well, so exiling Maelstrom Wanderer's graveyard could be decent to get a bunch of blockers or attackers even into play. And once we get our commander down, obviously they'll get buffed. So try to equip the Kozilek. Oh, don't interfere with us. Ugh, a Soul Shatter. Why are you insisting on helping the Maelstrom Wanderer player? There's some bad decisions being made here. So yeah, there's Greater Good. They would have had to sacrifice 4 permanents there, so let's say it was, even if it was just the Dorks, an Exploration and the Grim Monolith. I mean, it's less mana for next turn for them. And if we can just keep hammering this player with the Annihilator, then all the better, but yeah, taken out of our hands unfortunately. Discarding a Fabricate, a Lurking Predators, and a Song of the Dryads. And our graveyard is shuffled when the Kozilek dies. So yeah, I think we're discarding the Zenith Chronicler, and we just hold up the Null Elemental Blast again. Might get bad cascades on the Maelstrom Wanderer, or we don't want them to have haste, so countering that might be an idea. Draw another card with the Fevered Visions, and that's more tokens for us. Oh, we've got a Thought Vessel in play, forgot about that. Pristine Talisman, more life gain. Into a Nyx Fleece Ram, you'll never guess what that does. Okay, this player, after... Wow, don't you love it when people remove stuff and then just bounce? That means you get a ban, I'm afraid. So, like I said, we'll see what goes on with the cascades on Maelstrom Wanderer before we decide if we want to counter or not. Into Brainstorm, which can help him set up the next cascade, unfortunately. Well, that's a Selvala Stampede. I mean, 13 cards in hand, what do you go for with that? I mean, I think it has to be a wild vote, because they've just selected the cards that are in their hand during the discard phase. Our opponent's voted for free, which is very telling. It's a lot more random when it comes from the library. Well, that's a Tali, Primal Storm, and a Birds of Paradise. Wouldn't run the Mana Dorks myself if I was running things like Selvala Stampede. Noteworthy that the Atali has to attack in order to trigger as well, so here's our excuse to go for the Null Elemental Blast. We won't let Maelstrom Wanderer hit play so that we can destroy it, because they'll be able to sack it with the Greater Good. Oh, there's a Pathbreaker Ibex here as well that's snuck down. Of course they got that down from hand because they wanted to buff their library. Alright, so Maelstrom Wanderer now has 6 command attacks, which means it's going to cost 14 mana. Our opponent has 12 mana, including the Mana Dorks. So does that change things? Okay, Aloro scooping as well. We've drawn into Field of the Dead. So do we just try and set ourselves up for next turn? I think we have to, so Canop Tech Scarab Swarm. If we lose to Maelstrom Wanderer after it's having such a good game, I don't mind. I would like to cast Kozilek at some point though. So obviously point this at our opponent. Do they get Trample with the Ibex? Yes, they gain Trample, which is noteworthy. So then we can go for the Confluence. We can give +3, -3 3 times, which means we can get rid of, yeah, quite a few things here. If our opponent has 2 lands, he can go for the commander again is the problem. So do we just let them have the Atali? Yeah, I think I'll play the Sanctum of Ugin. We can crack the Myriad Landscape maybe. Yeah, we'll see what our opponent does, I think. But we ended up with 9 1/1 flyers, by the way. And it's looking as though, hopefully, we're going to be able to get down our commander next turn. Argument to be made for us going for this on our turn while they were tapped out, but like I said, I don't expect too much counter magic, apart from the odd modal spell from the Maelstrom Wanderer. Mystic Confluence and the like, that's a 5 mana one. A Gratuitous Violence, that is double damage. Our opponent is expecting to get through with the Ibex here, I imagine. And there is a Xenagos, God of Revels as well. So I think they could still have something like Heroic Intervention, but I think we'll wait for them to point the Xenagos somewhere. Probably at the Pathbreaker Ibex, isn't it? So Xenagos on the stack. Nope, goes at the Atali. I mean, they get the buff on everything with Pathbreaker Ibex. This will get +6/+6 from the Ibex, so anyway, whatever, doesn't matter. We'll go +3/-3 3 times, and it's 1, 2, and 3. And there is an Eldrazi Confluence. Our opponent still has Devotion to Gruul of 7, I think it has to be. Yeah, so it's still animated, which is noteworthy. But they do lose out on the attack step here, pretty much. Hoping they play it out though, because even if we don't have enough damage to get through, is it +3/+2 on this? Yeah, it is. We could still go wide. I mean, 3 times 9, what's that? 27. +9 is 36. Oh, and the flyers as well, so yeah, should be able to do it next turn. Crack the Myriad Landscape. Oh, Myriad Landscape doesn't work in colourless decks, alright. Noteworthy. Can't grab wastes with Myriad Landscape, apparently. Feels like something I knew once upon a time and have ended up forgetting. So we just cracked a Myriad Landscape for no reason. Alright, and that is a Hedron Archive. And we'll go straight in for the Kozilek here, because we have managed to keep hold of our fast mana this whole time. So Sanctum of Ugin triggers. We are going to target ourselves, and I don't think I'm going to give my opponent any creatures. I think I'd rather they didn't have the creatures, especially with Xenagos in play, and they obviously want to go for overrun effects. So we could hurt their hand, but they've got 6 cards in hand. I'm more likely to go for Kozilek when they've got few cards in hand. So let's exile the Zenith Chronicler and the Scroll of Fate. A lot of people were referring to this as hand disruption, and I think of it more as a means of us getting into more bodies that we can go wide with personally. Not going to sack the Sanctum of Ugin, because we've got plenty in hand already. Only 1 land available to us. We'll go for a 2 mana Everflowing Chalice, and then tap that down. We'll put protection on the Kozilek. Not worthy that we did draw back into the Ugin the Ineffable. But yeah, see if we can go wide here, because I haven't bothered to work it out yet. They just chump block the commander, but I'll swing in with everything anyway. They can lose a mana to a mana dork. But the flyers have jumped up to 4/3s, and there's 9 of them in the air. So 36 damage there alone, unless they want to block with Birds of Paradise. I dare say they're working out the maths here. Double blocking the commander, blocking a flyer. Okay, they're struggling with the blocks here. I dare say you just block this thing, our commander, and a flyer. But working out how much mana they want for next turn. We're on -5 at the moment, so I'm not sure they could have survived anyway. So Kozilek goes down, put that back into the command zone. Yeah, and we got them down to -5 there anyway. They were only blocking 4 damage with the Elvish Mystic anyway, so yeah, drawing a boatload of cards and having to discard them all was relevant with a Canoptek Scarab Swarm apparently, so that's well worth an include. Not many means of littering the board with tokens in colourless. We've got cards like the Thundering, whatever it was called we saw previously, Mere Battlesphere, another one. Obviously our commander enables it as well. But yeah, that panned out quite nicely for us across those 2 games. Fast mana's good apparently, who knew? If you want to see more from Kozilek, then be sure to let me know. I think I'll be tangling Ulamog again because that was a popular video previously. Big thank you to the patrons, and consider donating yourself on Patreon if you do like the videos. I'm Tribalkai. Thank you for watching.